What's going on, everybody? Oh, wow. That's excellent. My voice cracks up in the very opening sentence. I'm 53, going in my third round of puberty here. So welcome back to the show, Adventures in DevOps. I'm your host, Will Button. Joining me in the studio, Warren Parad. Welcome, Warren. How are you, man?
Hey, thanks a lot. It's interesting. I do a lot of public speaking, and one trick I've learned is that you're supposed to sort of say like hello to yourself, maybe quietly before you actually start talking. But we were just having a long conversation, so I honestly don't know what happened there.
Dude, that's one of those things that I think would take practice, saying hello to yourself, because then I'm gonna start overthinking it. Like, who am I saying hello to? Like,
oh no! I mean, it's not supposed to be create any sort of existential crisis here, but
right?
It's like, I mumble to myself sometimes when I'm dealing with a difficult problem, so that sort of comes a little bit natural to me. Anyway, the fact that I'd like to share today is something important to remember. I think in the world where we've started to convert more to DevOps, which likely means agile working, that means no sprints, no Scrum or anything like that, we lose a lot of ceremonies that come by default. And with a big release that happens once a year or once every other year, we're reminded to stop working on that thing, potentially celebrate our successes. So it's still important to do those things. And as a matter of fact, if you release every day, you almost should have little celebratory dances every day. But I usually recommend making sure that your team does something once a week or once every couple of weeks to actually sit down and be like, we're actually a good team. We actually got something accomplished, because I think it's really important for the health of the team and individual team members.
That's a really great point, man. That is, I like that. I can't even express in words how much I like that, because we spend so much time, feeling like we're under the gun, and you get something done and there's no time to celebrate. You're behind on other stuff already. So I think that's a great tip.
Oh, I'm terrible at doing it, but I think it's important, and I think teams love this too. So in previous engagements, we would have like a beer every Friday or something like that, where we actually talked about what we were doing. I think it's super important.
Yeah, for sure. Well, on to today's topic. We're talking about awesome DevOps, and assuming that if you're listening to this show, you're interested in DevOps. Could be a bold assumption on my part, but I'm going to roll with it. And, like, whether you're just getting started or whether you've been doing it for a long time, there's a continuous learning curve. So our guest today, Marius Stanca, has created a repo and has collected a bunch of resources and how to break down and categorize the different components and aspects of DevOps. And it's really a cool resource to go through and just kind of reflect on, like, oh, I need to work on this, oh, I don't need to work on that, or even like from a beginner's perspective of where do I even start. So with that long ramble out of the way, Marius, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for the invitation.
Yeah. So what is your background in DevOps? How did you get started? How long have you been doing it?
I think I started a freelance project. Yeah, it was a small project. And I think DevOps in that time wasn't that popular. And I started to work, let's say, as a DevOps here. And then I realized how actually cool is that, and then I doing from that time only DevOps. Yeah, I think I have more than 10 years. DevOps. Yeah,
right on. So what was the inspiration behind creating the awesome DevOps repo?
I think all of us, or most of us, we open the links all the time in the browser. We have a bunch of tabs in the browser, and we keep that. I'll read this later, And then I realized why I should not put this, let's say, in the document. In that time, I worked actually in a corporation, and in that time, I spent a little bit time to take all the tabs and then put in this, let's say, document, and then why not a website created around this? And then I gave this to some of the colleagues. What do you think about this? And they said, hey, it's a very good idea. Actually, one of them that pointed, hey, you need to put this in this section, something like that. And then I said, okay, let's go with this in the open source space. So then we can share this with a lot of people. Yeah.
You've got quite a lot of things listed here.
Yeah, there wasn't only my contribution actually. More than 30 people actually contribute to this, and they're keeping, let's say, people to, let's say fork or stars that still keeping, let's say, the average is 5 per day. But yeah, it's growing actually. Yeah, it's growing. Yeah.
Maybe this is a trick question, but like, do you know everything that's like in the repository? Like, are there things that have been added to your, like, I don't know what that tool is that someone just threw in there?
That's a good question, actually. I'm not, I don't accept any resource in that document, actually. I'm taking not all of them, but some of them I'm experimenting also, because I don't want to put any resource which is not related. Most of them, by the way, or not most of them, but some of them, they try to put only for, let's say, promote something like that. Yeah. I don't accept actually. If you, let's say, give a free account, or if you give at least a way you can experiment or you can play or you can use, let's say, in a project, then yeah, it's one of criteria I can accept. But yeah, I don't know all of them, to be honest, but at least I checked actually all of them. Yeah, I checked to see if it's related to the DevOps or if it's related to the SRE. Yeah. So yeah, it's
yeah, and I think it's a really good point for everyone to acknowledge, especially if you're new to DevOps, is you're never going to have 100% competency across DevOps. You know, you're going to have things that you are good at, and then your company or your job is going to shift and you're going to lose those skills, but at the same time pick up new ones, and then you'll circle back around.
Yeah.
And get mad at yourself because you're like, man, I used to know Terraform a lot better than this, but the skills have died off, and you've got to not only like brush up on the skills that you used to have, but also Terraform has added a bunch of new stuff since the last time you used it, or whatever product. You know, I'm just picking on Terraform, but the thing is, like, it's a continuous learning.
Yeah, for sure. I like that it's a cool hack to actually find out about those things, right? Like if you follow one of these repositories, every time there's a new change or discussion, it's like people are coming to you and telling you about those things that are in the industry that someone is using potentially, and get extra experience and know where to look next.
Yeah. So go ahead.
And I also, few of the, let's say, people I know, they want to start also in the DevOps. I mean, what's DevOps doing? How I can get started? I just give this repo, and then they go to the roadmap, for example, and then see what's actually is DevOps. I think it's helping. Yeah, it's helping the people who wants to join in the. To see what's actually is DevOps. Yeah.
Is it oriented towards those beginner engineers that inexperienced, or would there still be value for those that have 3, 5, or 20 years of experience?
I think it's more valuable to people who has more experience actually, because there are some other tools, or at least the tools are based on the sections. Maybe they want to. I want to see what are, I know how for example, the orchestration is working, for example, but I want to see what are the tools who actually it's based on my use case, or it's based on my cover my needs actually. Then I go there and see all the tools, and most of the tools, they are quite complex, and you need to know, at least you need to have the knowledge to, let's say, pick up quickly, so you can take and fit in your work. Yeah, I think mostly, I mean, it's most for the people who has experience. Yeah.
So for your own personal use, how often do you find yourself referring to your own website for resources?
So can you repeat?
Yeah, how often do you come back to your own to the Awesome DevOps repo to look up information for yourself?
To be honest, I still keep the tabs open.
Yeah.
But I'm going actually to check the CI/CD. Actually, I have a pipeline who actually check every week the link for each of the repo, if it's still available, if it's responding, or has HTTPS also. And I check. Then that time actually I check this these links on the repo. Yeah, I'm
Right on.
I don't use, let's say, this very often, but yeah, but it's okay to be as a record. Yeah.
I mean, I can imagine that there's some churn in the industry, but you've had to automate this. Does that mean that like a lot of links get broken, like those products are no longer maintained in some way? Do you have any like stats, or just be like 1 in 5 just don't exist after some time or something like that?
Yeah, last time it's one, which is Vulture Cloud. It's not responding, but I saw some of them. They changed the link, and maybe there is a security issue, something like that, or maybe the link redirects to something which is bad request, let's say. But yeah, last time just one. I had also 10 which are not responding one time, and then I get rid of them. Yeah, or I change also the link in case there is a repo. I put the repo link to that. I'm using one of the requests is actually when you put a link, it's okay to put the GitHub, because GitHub it's remain there. If you put let's say a custom domain, sometimes it's broken because it depends on where you store this. But yeah, I had also 10, no more than 10. But this time just one Vulture which is not responding. Maybe they put a limit. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. And more than 200. Yeah, more than 200 responding. Yeah.
Oh wow, right on.
Yeah.
So when I look at the top level organization of this, you have you've got like cloud platforms, and then file systems, automation and orchestration, databases, like all these upper level categories. How did you decide that those are the top level categories?
Yeah, interesting question actually. I think based on the so when I look to the tool or platform, whatever, I just see what actually for what is made actually. For example, let's take orchestration. For example, let's say we know this orchestration is doing something like it can orchestrate, let's say the workflow or let's say process or whatever, I just put, let's say, I can find this set of tools which are doing similar thing, for example, but they are for different needs, but they are doing different things. And then I put a tag based on this. Hey, these are doing the same thing. Then if it's, let's say, more than 2, 3, 4, I just put a tag, just put this in this section. Hey, this is for that. Yeah.
Do you find that there's like a lot of tools that fall into multiple categories? Like it's not so easy to quickly identify that, oh, this is a database.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like a database as a service or some sort of data platform or something like that.
Indeed. Yeah. I found, for example, Argo. If you take Argo, it's not just for the CI/CD. You can use for other things, which has different components, and it's hard to put only for the CI/CD. You need to put also the other categories. Yeah, I don't know, for the pipelines or data pipelines or something like that. But it's there, indeed.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I'm actually curious about that. So Argo CD primarily, I mean, it's in the name that it's CI/CD, but you're saying that there's, they focus on a bunch of different areas. Talk to me about that.
For example, they have Argo workflow. You can run multiple, workflow, which you can run, let's say, batch jobs, for example. They have also Argo events. You can do this, let's say, for different events. You can trigger different, let's say, workflows. They have also with Argo CD, you can do not only the deployment, you can use for even the orchestration. If you want to integrate this in the product to see, let's say, I want to deploy resource creation, let's say. The resource creation in the cloud, for example. And then you want to deploy, let's say, every time new trigger is coming, the Argo CD, you can do this. Doesn't have to be, let's say, for the continuous deployment or continuous delivery. Yeah. So, yeah, it's for different use case. Yeah. Even if it's built for the CI/CD, you can do, or other things. Yeah.
I think that's one of the benefits of having curated resources like this is you're able to me, it feels like you can get that information much more quickly from a curated list like this than you can from the company's own website about their product. Because like when you go to like someone's website, not to pick on anyone, but there's like all the marketing and the fluff and the pipeline to get you to cough up your email address so they can add you to their email list, and it's hard to just say like what do you actually do for a living? I'm here on your page. What do you actually do? And then when you figure that out, like what else can you do? And so I think that's where curated lists like this are really, really helpful, just because it strips down to here's what you're going to do.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of value there, realistically. It's just we have one that we maintain for SOC 2 related resources, and we get requests to update it similar. And realistically, we have to go to the provider and be like, what are you charging for? How much is it? What do you get out of there? And some of them just can't even answer us straight. Like they want their link to be there, and I'm like, you told us that you charge $7,000 per user set for some small companies, but that's not what your pricing page said. So like, where did you get that from? Where did you pull it? It's like, well, oh yeah, we're updating that. Or the feature set doesn't match what they're looking at. And so it's like a real challenge to even, like you're actually providing more than just the list curation, but also the definitions of those things and what's important there for people that are coming and looking for that tool set. And it's not marketing nonsense.
How big of a struggle is that for you? I know you mentioned it earlier, talking about checking to make sure that the links are not only accessible, but that there's a free version of it. Do you find that there's a lot of a lot of places where people try to slip in ways to get you into their sales funnel using your site?
I saw, actually, I saw a link. I opened a pull request. In that pull request was the link, and the end of the link it was a code. I think some of the people, they try also to promote, and based on this code, it's referring, hey, this request came from this repo, something like that. I know. Not all. It's not happen all the time, but it's.
That's like that's a whole business model there, is go around and plug in like your affiliate links.
No, but I mean,
exactly. Affiliate links, exactly.
I get it, right? You want to know whether or not this link is getting clicked on, and where these users are coming from. If they're actually going at this tool, because maybe you're like, oh, these users, we're changing our content where this link goes, and right now it's pointing to some place, and we want to know, hey, are we actually getting links here so that we can make sure that the content is oriented better for the audience that are coming in? I don't know. There is something with tracking, which is for sure problematic. But I do think that, and this is sort of the problem with the tech industry in general, the overlap between used for a good purpose and used for a nefarious purpose. It's the same tool, but your intent and what you do with it at the end of the day it can be much different, and there's no way to distinguish up front what they're going to actually do with that information.
Yeah, that's one of the that's a whole nother podcast episode there. I'm going to stop talking.
I know it's for sure true. Marius, I did notice that you worked at quite a few number of different companies, and so that experience must have really built up over time. Did you notice anything significantly different in the sort of role that you were doing for different companies at different stages, or where they were at, or how their approaches to DevOps?
No, I think the most challenging on the DevOps side, actually, or they don't know how to, let's say, structure the teams. How is the communication actually, and actually what the responsibility means actually for the DevOps. This is the most problematic in most of the companies. They want DevOps, but they don't know how to apply the actual DevOps. But in the end, DevOps should be the same. But most of the companies I join, they think, let's say, DevOps is different thing than the other one. Some of them, they think it's, let's say, new sysadmin. Some of them it's sorry, it's I know, but this is the most problematic issue.
What does that look like from your perspective? It's not. I mean, I agree with you for sure that it's not sysadmin or SRE. Those are distinct other areas for other roles, but your perspective here, what does that really amount to?
For me, it's, let's say, I think for me it's just breaking the barrier between, let's say, the application and the infrastructure actually. For example, I want to deploy, let's say, the infrastructure, so I should be able to deploy the infrastructure, but also I should be able to deploy the application. So for me, the DevOps, it's simplify the whole workflow, let's say, from develop the application to deploy the application, and including all the tool set actually on the backend. That's miss actually. Also, another example, let's say, even let's say the person who's building the product doesn't know about the infrastructure, but at least that person should have ability to grab this tool set and then just click or just type a command and then deploy something like that. This one actually is for me a DevOps. Yeah, not making for the, let's say, getting the application from the person who developed and then just deploy it by your. No. You should give the let's say the instructions, and then hey, just do by yourself. Yeah. So just simplify. Simplify the workflow. Yeah. Put the application live. Yeah. That means yeah. I know it's combined a little bit. I mean, it's using the same process like platform engineering, little bit, but at least, yeah, increase the productivity, increase, let's say, the experience, let's say, so you can have these processes to use it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, the way I've been thinking about it, and this is sort of a new approach for me that's developed over the last couple of years, is it's about putting in guardrails and creating a set of guardrails so that the application engineers can build, deploy, and ship as fast as they want to with wherever they're at in their expertise. And then I'm just going to put guardrails in the way so that they can't accidentally do something that they don't want to do.
Yeah.
Like including your API key in the URL string of your link.
Yeah, you can add some policy.
I feel like it's a never-ending struggle then.
It is. It is.
Your job is never complete.
You know, I want to interrupt you there real quick on that very point, because I get asked by tons of people every week, is DevOps still a valid career path, or is it a dead end? And I think that point right there highlights the fact that we will never be done with this, Warren, because every bad path that we close just opens up the opportunity for someone to forge a new path that we have to close.
I mean, I don't know if I were going to be so cynical. There's an aspect. There's an aspect here for me that's about automating your job away. And so whatever it is that you're doing, make that go away. That either you go into the organization and you make it so it's no longer a business problem or a tech problem or whatever, or you're building some tool around it so it's not education. There is a problem that needs to be solved, and making it so that something works super reliably, like that CLI command, etc. You don't own it. Some other team owns it realistically, but you're improving it to such a point where it's automated. And then you're out of a job and you look at the organization from the outside in, you're like, hey, look, this other thing is broken in the organization. Like, let me be the person who bangs their face against the wall over and over again on that problem now. It's in the database space, or it's in the security space because of what you're doing, or there's a new tool out that's nice and shiny that everyone wants to use, or not. I think the bigger problem that I see a lot is the organization has divested ownership in innovation to a different team, and that team is divesting ownership in innovation because they're just trying to automate whatever is in place. So there still has to be this aspect where you go out and learn about new tools through GitHub repositories out there on the internet, and find whether or not that's the best way to be going about it. Someone still has to be doing that and bring them in. In the past, that role in my teams has been I mean, it's just the sort of person that ends up there, and they can do a great job pulling this stuff in, and they go through every RSS feed that they can find, every email from every source, and think about these things. And I think realistically, injecting new ideas in, because the worst thing that you could do would be to create those guardrails, as you said, well, and then those guardrails, pointing you off a cliff 10 years in the future. That it's very difficult for even people to see realistically.
And one of the most challenging also in the DevOps side, it's how to combine all the tools together. Because I saw, different, let's say, teams, they put like this, the other ones like this, or different companies has different. It's hard, it's hard indeed. This is actually for me, I think this is most challenging, is to grab these tools and put to work together, actually. So it's a problematic.
Yeah, for sure. Because you get you work with really talented engineers, and they take some different tools and bolt them together to create something. And you personally may have experience with all those tools, but never thought to use them this way. And so when you first walk into the room, you're like, oh my God, should I be impressed or scared?
Yeah, exactly. Scared, yeah.
There is for sure, it is something that maybe I don't understand. There's genius going on there. I feel like something about both approaches isn't the best. Like on one side, it's wow, they're using that tool for that. Like that just, and on the other side, it's wow, they built that themselves. Like whatever it is. And so I think there's some old joke here about there never was the case that some engineer came into a team after being recently hired and said, wow, that last person's code in this domain, it's absolutely fantastic. I don't want to touch it at all.
Right. One of my favorite examples of that is I had this job a long time ago, and we had our application was a web-based application using ASP.NET 1.0, and I know, right? But it gets better, because the guys who built this, rather than just writing the ASP code, the .NET code to render the website, they decided that they would store the .NET code in a SQL database. And so the web server would query the SQL database, and it would get the .NET code in the response, and then it would render that as the website. So if you wanted to change a frame or load a different image on the website, you actually had to update a stored procedure in the database to do that. And I was like, okay, that's unique, that's novel, but we're not going to do that anymore.
I mean, just wait till you get to the point where they're like, well, what we found was that was inefficient. So what we ended up doing was creating our own tool that allowed you to edit that database in sort of like a IDE-like manner. I saw the one where previous job where people got on the Microsoft train very quickly. And so they're like, oh, Silverlight, that's a thing. And, for enterprise applications, we're building stuff for Silverlight. And it's very sad when you're trusting in a large organization to maintain a framework very long. And I think for that one, it actually got discontinued in Google style before it was officially out of the pre-release. And so you're left with that sort of thing. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's on the both sides of the spectrum, right? Small companies, they have a couple of people who just don't want to use a lot of tools, so they do it themselves. And also large companies that have lots of people, we're like, we also need to do it ourselves. It's there's got to be somewhere where someone's saying, you know what, I know the perfect tool for the job. If only I knew what that tool was.
Yeah, I think what you're getting at there is something that I've seen for decades in this career. Is there's this overwhelming desire from corporations to create a tool to let non-technical people perform the technical roles. And I get that, because finding tech people is really, really hard and expensive. I get it. It's just I don't think it's been successful.
And still today, right? That's why we're using the GPTs to generate source code, right? So non-technical people can contribute as well to the bugs in our production platforms.
That one's actually working because I've got my GPT bot making pull requests as we're recording this podcast. It looks like I'm still at work.
That's absolutely fantastic. I mean, you should let us
That's
know.
a good one.
Yeah, I mean, all of us here, I think, listening, want to know, Will, how exactly you did that, because I could definitely get some extra money on the side doing 2 or 3 extra DevOps jobs.
The key here is my code is so shitty to begin with that they're not really going to see anything except improvement by letting ChatGPT do it.
Oh, no. Yeah. I mean, maybe you should train it on some Git repositories out there that have a list of good tools, and every once in a while throw in integration with one of those just to make it look like, oh, you know what you're doing.
Oh, Marius, have you tried this? Have you pointed ChatGPT to your repo and said, hey, I'm wanting a tool that does this?
No, I didn't.
All right, I'm going to check back next week with you.
I mean, you got to imagine that, especially companies like OpenAI have used Marius's repository to actually funnel names of products and companies and tools that can be utilized in this space. I don't know how much. I mean, we know that GitHub was for sure a source of this. I mean, GitHub has their own solution here that they have to be utilizing. So realistically, it's invaluable not just to human onlookers, but also our future robot overlords.
Yeah, fair point.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to be in their good graces as much as possible.
That's Rocco's basilisk, right?
But that's why I always tell Siri thank you every time I ask her a question.
I think that's important to train them that that's the appropriate human interaction.
So how much to put together and maintain a resource like this, how much time and effort do you spend on this?
I think a couple of hours per week.
Right on.
Yeah.
So that's not huge, but that's still an ongoing commitment.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of things that strike me from that is one, that you can produce really quality resources without a lot of effort. And 2, if I were to just put in that same amount of effort, I could probably close down about 200 browser tabs.
He's already thinking about automate. Like, how can I create this tool that automatically closes browser tabs and just moves the links into a GitHub document? Like that, I just saw that's where his thoughts were going.
Yeah, I think it's also the experience, to be honest. Working in many tools, you have kind of idea what's actually that tool, for example, or jump very quickly on that tool, and then you just read a little bit about that. You just, let's say, if in case you have an option to play with that, they can give you a free account, for example. You can play with that. So it's, let's say, maybe also because of this, the things are quick, yeah. So
yeah, so that's
yeah.
Go ahead, Warren.
Have you found anything particularly interesting in your journeys through getting all these products, and you're like, wow, like I didn't know there was this tool that did this thing. It would have helped me so many times in the past.
Yeah. I didn't know there is a. I don't know if you know GitLab CI, and if you want to run, let's say, if you want to run, let's say, runners. CI/CD. Pipelines. You need to have runners to run.
Yeah, for sure.
And I didn't know there is a. I think it was created a pull request with this tool, and this tool actually simplified the management of the runners of the GitLab actually. And I actually experimented that. Gave me an account actually. I experimented that, and it looks like it's very, very interesting actually tool. You can spin up runners quickly actually. Just connect it to the GitLab, and then. So yeah, there are some which are very good actually, yeah, and simplify the works.
That's definitely a unsolved bootstrapping problem in DevOps. Maybe someone has to make that. Like, how do you have the runners already working before you show up on the first day? Because as far as I can tell, there's some manual deployment that's got to happen where you click some buttons somewhere and be like, okay, finally I can let the machines do their work now without manually playing with them over and over again.
Yeah. That one is still in review because I put a tag reviewed so the people can know what is the status of the pull request. And that one is, I think it's in review, if I'm not wrong. But anyway, I'm playing with that tool. So every pull request which I have, let's say, there's a new tool. I just play with that tool. I will try to play with that tool in case they give me this option. Or I just read the documentation if it's quite valid for me, and then just based on this I can merge actually the changes. But there are also new tools. You need to spend a little bit time.
Well, because I've seen. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, let's say, it doesn't take too much, but maybe because of the experience, I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, in other spaces with especially physical products, I know companies will give you, send you a copy of whatever it is so you can try it out and then post a hopefully glowing review on your stream or YouTube or whatever. I actually hadn't considered the possibility of that for software tools. I guess maybe here's my pitch right now. Companies, let us, give us a free version of whatever you've got, and we'll test it out. I think is quite a great opportunity for them to get users in place. Not just put a random promotional link that people can click on, but actually, you're willing to bring it in, talk about it, actually test it out, and use it, and put it
give the feedback. Yeah,
I get that from my YouTube channel. Like companies will approach me and say, "Hey, will you try out our product and do a video on your thoughts about it?"
Does it work out so well so far?
Not really, no. Maybe that's not the right answer. I should say I haven't done many of them because for me, I know that me personally, like whenever I first look at a new tool, I'm like, oh man, this is cool. And I get, I artificially inflate my excitement about it. But then whenever I come back the second time, I look at it from a more pragmatic point of view and say, well, is this really solving a problem that I have? Or is this me playing with a tool, pretending to solve a problem? And that time and effort, for me, I just know me and my personality, I have to go through that process before I can get a full, accurate picture of it. And the time and effort it takes to do that in a YouTube video just hasn't been a good fit for me. So I haven't done actually many of those. I've been approached many times, but I haven't done it.
There's a real challenge there, a time investment to really understand how a tool works. I mean, I'm on the opposite side of the spectrum. I see something and I'm like, I don't want that. I mean, maybe it's great, but I look at it, my first reaction is like, that's just extra overhead or extra effort to pull in yet additional tool. Like we have to remember that every time we add a tool, that's extra cognitive overhead for everyone involved to have to think about and deal with, which is a real concern. And the only way to reduce that overhead is by using less tools in some way, unfortunately. There's not a lot of alternatives there. But I think the decision on buy versus buy is also incredibly challenging to know whether or not a tool will be the right one. One of the things that keeps coming back to me, it wasn't a methodology that I had a lot of experience with early on in my career, is this idea of one-way versus two-way doors, where if you're trying to pick a tool that you want or even make a decision, if it's an easy reversible decision or the impact of that decision is low, then it doesn't matter which way you go, and you might as well just flip a coin and pick one and go from there, because you can regret that decision and just make an easy change. But if there's a huge impact to the organization, or you'll be bought in for a long period of time, then you'll be forced to pay that cost if you do make a mistake. But even then, it's good to think about how to separate it out into multiple pieces. Like, can you make a decision at a smaller level instead of buying the whole tool and getting a 3-year license deal for that, and then that becomes the justification for continued usage. Go with a 1-year license and then revisit after a couple of years of renewing it.
I think I'd heard that before, but it's never really stuck. But hearing you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Sometimes these things work on other people, right? Like they get stuck in a decision and you got to figure out what the right words are to say to help them sort of unstick themselves. I think another one that comes up very often is one tool to solve all of your problems. I think you may have heard of the single pane of glass, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I think it goes around in a lot of the marketing teams, sales teams, business analytics, that realistically as a user, like I want to use my ID, right? Like I want to go in there and that's the only thing I need to worry about. Like I like Git, the command line. I'm sure someone's like, well, how can you like the command line? But then we have a Vim user right here. So, but like that's mine, right? Like I don't want to have to leave that tool unless I really need to, unless I'm testing a UI, and I obviously don't do that very frequently. But the same is true in other areas. So definitely consolidating that can be helpful. But at the same time, if you're overutilizing a tool to do something that isn't necessarily meant to do or creates extra challenges, it is better to have two in those situations.
For sure. Marius, what's your favorite tool that you've learned about as a result of curating this website?
It's SourceStack, actually.
Really? Right
Yes.
on.
Not only you can do configuration management, just putting a file on the server, just doing a lot of it's doing a lot of things. Even if you want, let's say, deploy some resources in the cloud, you can do that. Or let's say type in a command in CLI from 1,000 servers, for example, at the same time. So I think for me it's interesting how actually it's capable, this tool. And you can do a lot of things there. This one looks interesting actually. It's the one which I like most actually. Yeah.
Right on.
I actually haven't used it myself. That's like the advanced version of like Puppet, Chef, Ansible. Right now we're at SaltStack or something like that. And it does configuration management.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. It's similar with Ansible, but the difference is it has master actually. It's working like a master and slave. Mm-hmm. But with the new version, you can do also what Ansible is doing with SSH. Yeah. But yeah, I use this tool, to be honest, to do a lot of things. For example, grabbing all the information from the server is in real time, actually. Because you have a slave for each of the server. Let's say we had more than 1,000. And it's hard to, let's say, to keep eye on the servers when it's failing, when you, let's say, execute the SaltStack, for example. And I use this tool to grab the information in real time in the Grafana to see where it's failing, what is the server is failing, what is the line it's failing of the state. It's the file actually it's SaltStack it's executing. So you can do a lot of things. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I haven't used that one either.
A tool which give you at least extensibility, or you can, let's say, do more things. Even, let's say, you cannot do that in that time, for example, but you have a gate, you have a way you can extend for other things. I think it's the best tool. Yeah. For example, Kubernetes. All of us know Kubernetes. Kubernetes not only just run the application, right? You can run jobs. You can run, let's say, you can extend for other capabilities with the CRD, for example. You can keep the data, by the way, as the objects in the ATCD, for example. Yeah, you can do a lot of things. Yeah,
For sure. So what's the future of Awesome DevOps look like? What kind of things have you got planned for it?
Yeah. The feature of Awesome DevOps, it's right now. First of all, you need to put price for each of the tool.
Oh,
because most of them they're trying to put a commercial, let's say, link, and it's good to have at least from the single view. The view, you just enter the website and then see the list. The decision, it's quicker if it's free, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you will see what is the price for that tool, for example. The other one that I don't know if it's included in this Awesome DevOps, but it's okay to be, I think, is to put a framework in place, actually, a framework which brings the organizations how they can adopt DevOps quickly. And what are the steps? What are the tools as an example, not, let's say, you need to use these tools, but at least they give this framework should give the, let's say, the management, for example, to grab the DevOps quicker in the company. For example, how the team should be structured, how they should communicate, what are the tools, what are the workflows or process, or what are the things they need to automate, or whatever it's in the DevOps. I think it's better to have this, including the tools. It should be something complete, Take this and then do the DevOps in the organization. Yeah.
I see Will smiling a little bit. I mean, there is something about that scares me. Not having it, but like if I look at the Agile Manifesto and then I look to see how the word Agile is being used today, or used incorrectly today, I feel like everyone's sort of done the wrong thing with DevOps as well. So it's sort of an unfortunate situation that companies adapt what they're doing. They don't understand a word or a mindset, and then map it to what they're already doing or what they already understand. I think that's sort of just humanity, right? There's not a lot that can be done there. So I think having a roadmap for how to actually implement that in your organization, I think there is value there. I can just see, there'll be eventually a safe version of DevOps and a less version. And I don't know how I feel about that.
At least they can give the basic information. I don't know how they can start, because I saw people, I don't know what is the starting point actually to adopt this, something like that. Or they can give you high overview, let's say, or I don't know. They can easily pick up, maybe easy, but yeah, at least they have starting point. Yeah.
I think one of the cool aspects of that approach is creating the framework from a why are you here perspective. Like, okay, you're interested in DevOps, but why? What's the problem you're trying to solve? Because the answer to that might change the path that they're pursuing and lead them to results quicker.
Indeed, yeah.
He just wanted his in to talk about selling things and education and where is your customer at, right? When they end up on the landing page, what are they looking for? Are they looking for what is I heard some cool kids saying the term DevOps and I don't know what that means. I want someone to tell me what it is. And the difference of wow, it's perfectly aligned with what we're currently trying to do, and we're innovators in the space and we want to know more. We want to know tools lists and other things that we can be doing. And this is a huge, massive spectrum from one side to the other. And I think capturing that is quite a challenge, right? Even individual products go and have a very narrow mindset of what their audience actually looks like. Marius said that, more of the expert practitioners who probably are looking for ways to convince their organization to implement DevOps more effectively, rather than I don't know what DevOps is, but I'm sure we're doing it because we're a great company.
Right?
I use also, I mean, couple of years, someone asked me in the interview, actually, what is the DevOps? I explained little bit, blah, blah, blah. And he asked me, you are contribute to the open source? Yeah, I have, I contribute, but mostly it's a awesome DevOps repo. I just give this awesome DevOps, and he told me, why you didn't give this when I asked you, what is the DevOps? I think, and I think it's a good idea, actually. If you want to see what is a DevOps, just give the link. I don't want to answer. I just give this link. I guess.
Man, I feel like there's such this challenge the other way around, though, because people don't like reading things, right? So like, I feel like I have to make a custom message for each person. Otherwise, if I just like, oh, you know what, that answer is 100% defined at this, like, just you want to go here, like, trust me, just read this, and they still don't want to do that.
Yeah. What's funny? Yeah, it was funny.
Right on. Well, yeah, I think we've covered it. Like this is a super cool resource. Like I keep scrolling, I've been scrolling through it and looking at it as we've been doing this entire episode, and it's very, very thorough. It's easy to navigate. It's really, really well done. So congratulations on that, because you've been doing this. I was looking at the GitHub stats. You've been doing this for like 5 years now.
Yeah, that's a long time, actually.
Yeah, that's commitment right there. That's impressive. And I think one of the cool things about that is that's 5 years of history and changing tools, adding new tools, removing older tools. With consistent updates. So I think that alone just gives us a lot of value as far as being a relevant resource.
And not only this, but it helps you actually. It helps you to see if that tool is still available in the market. I saw some of the links. Oh, the tool is not exist anymore, or it's in the archive mode or something like that. So it's okay. It's nice. It's nice to have also this updated.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, should we do some picks?
For sure.
Right on. Warren, what'd you bring for us this week?
Yeah, so I was reminded recently how the DevOps movement may have been started in the agile mindset. And actually before that was lean, which comes from manufacturing. So many people don't know about this. Lean is all about eliminating waste in organizations, most specifically manufacturing. And there's a book that really categorizes this primarily called The Toyota Way. And it contains a bunch of principles. They say management principles, but realistically, they're how to achieve more effective flow in your development team. You can have lean software engineering. And I learned about this before Agile, realistically, and it's really affected my mindset and put me in a direction of it's not just about doing things quickly, but really understanding the overhead in any number of aspects. The one that I find most interesting is a product that's been delivered has a negative impact on your organization, because until you start getting money in or delivers value to your customers, it's sitting on the shelf and it requires maintenance and upkeep in order to make sure that it's still effective. And so if a product isn't actually returning enough value, the best thing you can do for the organization is delete it. And I feel like that's a mindset that is lost on a lot of people, and being in the DevOps space is super critical for us to help remind others that it's not just free. Like you don't just write something once and throw it out there and then you don't have to do anything after that.
Yeah, that's a very, very valid point. Working a lot with early stage startups that like I do, I advocate a lot, like you have to define the success criteria. Like this product, when we launch it within 6 months, has to be meeting these objectives. Otherwise, we're deleting it for that very reason.
That takes some real discipline to actually achieve, though. Like, congrats. Like that's not easily done.
Yeah, it's not easy by any means, because when you define those criteria, like when you get to the measurement day, like you're emotionally attached to this thing. And so then you try to like massage the criteria and say like, well, we didn't really hit that, but we do have this. And you have to be, it works best when you're just brutally honest with everyone and are in a group of people where you can call each other out on your bullshit.
I like, I think what helps me here is I use the mindset. If we didn't have this anymore, we're at the day, like put everything on the table. Like we have no engineers, we have no product, we have no software done at all. Would we today hire a group of engineers to go and rebuild this thing by buying it off the shelf and buying it all? And often you're like, wait, no, actually, I don't want to do that. Knowing what we know now. And then that's a good indicator for what you should do and how to separate the current state from whatever mindset or unfortunate attachment you have to that.
Right on. Marius, what'd you bring for a pick?
I don't know.
Fair enough. I'll give you a minute to think about it. I'll go next. So my pick, if you have been listening to the show recently, this one's not going to surprise you. I'm once again picking Platform Con. We've got the list of speakers are out on the website now. And so at the end of the conference, I'm going to be doing a live Q&A session with some of those speakers, asking them questions. So I'm treating this as a way to get to the humans behind the talks, and learn the people who are doing this and what they're into and what drives and motivates them. So if there's specific questions you want me to ask them, hit me up on X, aka Twitter, or email, or whatever place you see me hanging out online, and let me know what your questions are. And Platform Con is coming up in June. It's 5 days this week, and 5 full days, live streamed, 100% free, tons of great speakers. Check it out, platformcon.com.
Yeah, don't miss your opportunity to bug Will on this, honestly, because I find a lot of the value at conferences is sort of the human interaction, the questions that come up afterwards. You can go lots of places and watch arbitrary content on YouTube and whatnot. So, if you see something there interesting, definitely forward the question.
Yeah, for sure. It's like so many of the talks, whenever we give talks, we are in a bubble and we talk about what we think is going to be interesting. And there's all kinds of questions. And sometimes there's just questions, like you see someone giving a talk and you're like, wow, that person is doing something really cool. What could I learn from them? And this is your chance to ask those questions. All right. Back to you, Marius. What you got?
Can be anything.
Yeah, book, movie,
yeah.
Content, something from your personal life, or something technical if you prefer that.
Yeah, I think I'm going to some technical, actually. I didn't experiment anything except the technical part because, there is no time for other things. But yeah, but
for sure.
If you, let's say, want to learn something, you need to experiment. And by experiment, you can learn, you can grab that, piece very quickly. You can even speak about that. You can, you can build, actually. So I think it's not, you don't need, or it's not enough to read. It's better to experiment, actually. And I think for all the people who are listening, if you want to, for the new people who actually want to, jump in a specific area, it's not enough to read. Just experiment also,
Yeah, 100% agreed. Absolutely truth. All right, excellent. Well, Marius, thank you for joining us. For everyone listening, check out Awesome DevOps, awesome-devops.xyz. Are you active on any social platforms? Hang out online anywhere, Marius?
GitHub, LinkedIn, but GitHub mostly, yeah.
Right on. Awesome. So if you want to reach out to Marius, you can find him on GitHub.
Yeah.
And
my website, marius.xyz. Yeah.
Oh, right on. There you go.
Yeah. Simple.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I like it. The simple domain names, they're getting hard to come by.
If you wait long
It's
enough.
easy to remember, yeah.
But one day, especially for you, Will, you may find your last name as TLD.
All right. But you know what's going to happen? Somebody's going to like jump on Will first, and then I'll miss out again.
Again, so you have a previous traumatic experience here.
Dude, it took me forever to get willbutton.com.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it did. But that's a story for another time. Marius, thank you for coming on the show. Really enjoyed the conversation. Warren, thanks for joining me again. Appreciate having you here. And for everyone listening, thanks for listening, and we will see y'all next week.